Welcome back to Low Stress Math with Mrs. Bono. This is Lesson 6 in Chapter 1 on exponents, and today we're going to talk about the power rule versus the product rule. Actually, I like it the other way around. Product rule versus the power rule. And really what I want to go over is, when do you use the product rule and when do you use the power rule? So we're going to determine when to use the product rule versus when to use the power rule. And down here, the directions are easy enough. Simplify each expression below. So pause the video, take a deep breath, think good mathematical thoughts, and answer those two problems. All right, welcome back. I'm hoping that you tried these two problems on your own. I'm looking at this problem, and the thing that gives me the big hint as to which rule to use is that big dot there. That dot tells me that this is multiplication. And when you're multiplying, you're going to use the product rule. That's what multiplication is. It's finding a product. So I'm just going to divide these two problems up with a little double bar here so that my notes don't end up into each other. And I'm going to use the product rule. Look at that, I've already made a mistake and I'm not even 3 minutes into the video. I made a T out of my L because I was gonna make that very close sort of E there. So product rule, multiplication. And when do you multiply? When you have the big dot or you have one parenthesis next to another parenthesis? So multiply. And you know it's going to be multiplied because it's going to be something like a to the n power times a to the m power, or parentheses a to the n power times a to the m power. Those are both ways to write multiplication. So now I'm going to write the rule down here. Keep the base, always. Keep the base. Whether the base is a number or the base is a variable, you usually can tell. It's the one that has the exponent. Although sometimes there's no exponent, you got to put your, well, we'll get back to that. So keep the base, and then you're going to add the exponents. So for this one, my base is 2. So I'm going to keep my base 2, and I'm going to add the exponents 2 plus 7. And I get 2 to the 9th power. Oh, there it is. That's not too bad. Put a little box around it. There we go. That's my first answer. Now this one, if that was the product rule, and I'm doing product versus, you knew this was probably going to be a power rule. So, what's power rule? A power rule that's when you have more than one exponent, because a power is another word for an exponent. So the power rule is going to apply when you have one base with more than one exponent. So I'm just going to write more than one exponent. So in other words, it's always going to have parentheses and one exponent inside the parentheses and one outside the parentheses. So it will always look like a to the n power, the whole thing to the m power. So it's going to have one pair of parentheses and two exponents. Okay, so what do I have to do? As always, keep the base. And then I'm going to multiply the exponents. So I'm going to keep the base and multiply the exponents. In this case, my base is 2, and I'm multiplying 2 times 7. So I'm keeping the base 2, and 2 times 7 is 14. So I'm keeping the base, and I'm multiplying the exponents for the power rule. So what I'd like you to do now is take a minute and look at these problems down here that say practice. And I'd like you to practice. First, look at them and identify the rule you're going to use. Identify whether to use the power rule or the product rule. Am I going to, with the product rule, add the exponents, or with the power rule, multiply the exponents? So pause the video and take a minute to try those problems. Okay, welcome back. I'm looking at this first problem, and it looks like this problem. It has a base and exponents and a big dot for multiplication. So that's the product rule. This one has parentheses. It has numbers and variables and exponents in both parentheses, but it still kind of looks like this. So I know that this, too, is going to be the product rule. Get out of here, you. I don't need you just yet. So that's the product rule also. Down here, I have a base with 2 exponents. What was that? That is the power rule. So I'm going to write power rule on my rule line. Here we go. Power rule. I realize I just picked up a different green pen. That's okay. Here we go. This has got numbers and variables and exponents, but it also has the big dot of multiplication. So then I know that that's going to be the product rule also. Down here, parentheses and 2 exponents, power rule. Make that look like an R. Okay. Also parentheses with 2 exponents. 2 exponents right next to each other in the parentheses. That's always going to be the power rule. Now I can go back and solve them because I know what I have to do. For the product rule, I add exponents. For the power rule, I multiply exponents. So this first one has a number for a base. It has 4 as a base. But it has exponents, so 2 plus 3. I'm going to keep the base, add the exponents, and get 4 to the 5th power. For this one, this has a lot going on. It has coefficients, it has exponents, it has bases. So I'm going to take a look at the coefficients first. And I'm going to use that rule that says I can move the variables and the coefficients around and combine my like terms. And that rule, commutative property. So I'm going to write the commutative property down here. And that's the property that says you can move the numbers and letters around to put like terms together. And in this case, I'm going to multiply coefficients and I'm going to add exponents. And I'm kind of off the paper there. So I'm going to start with multiplying my coefficients. -3 times 2. And I'm going to keep the base a, and I'm going to add the exponents 4 plus 7. So -3 times 2 is -6. Keep that base a, add the exponents 4 plus 7 to get 11. So I get -6 a to the 11th power. And I just realized I have no equal sign there, and I didn't box this answer, so I'm going to box that answer too. So when there are coefficients thrown in there, it adds like another step, but it's not too bad. Okay, the power rule. I'm going to keep the base and multiply the exponents. Keep the base, multiply the exponents, 8 times 5, and I get m to the 40th power. Not too bad. I'll put a little box around that too. I like blue boxes. All right, over here, back to the product rule. Commutative property, multiply coefficients. That's going to be first. 6 times 3. Keep the base, y, and I'm going to add the exponents, 8 plus -2. And if you're not good adding those numbers, you have calculators. You will always have calculators on a test, on a quiz, in math class. Get used to it, learn how to use it. 6 times 3, 18. Keep the base y, and 8 plus -2 is 6. So that's going to be 18y to the 6th power. All right. Down here, I have the power rule, but in my parentheses, I have a coefficient, a variable, and an exponent. So this whole thing in this parenthesis is the base. And this number on the outside, this little square, is going to be distributed to the coefficient and to the exponent. So my base is 1 5/10 x to the 6th power, and I'm going to distribute the exponent outside the parentheses. So 1 5/10 squared x to the 6th times 2. So I'm distributing my exponent. Well, 1 5/10 squared is 2 25/100. Keep the base x and multiply the exponent. 6 times 2, 12. So I get 2 25/100 x to the 12th power. Okay. Phew, look at how easy this one is compared to those last two. Got to think about them problems. This one has a base of 3, and I'm going to multiply the exponents 4 times 2. Well, that's not too bad. Keep the base 3, multiply the exponents. 4 times 2 is 8. And that's a nice, simple, straightforward how to use a power rule. Okay, next page. Dun, 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 dun. We're getting to the interesting stuff. All right, on this page, we're going to simplify this expression using the product and power rules. So, what does that mean? It means I'm going to follow the order of operations. I'm going to use PEMDAS. I'm going to do parentheses, and then exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract, but these are always from left to right. So in my parentheses, I'm actually using the power rule. I lie. In the parentheses, I'm using the product rule. So I'm going to do the product rule first. And then I'm going to use the power rule. Product because it's in the parentheses. Power because that's the only other property I know right now. So keep the base, h, and I'm going to add 5 plus 7. And when I'm done, I'm keeping the parentheses for now, but they will eventually disappear. I have h, 5 plus 7 is 12. And then on the outside, I still have that little 6. So I'm going to keep the base h. Now I'm going to multiply 12 times 6. And 12 times 6, ooh, what is that? Big numbers. Back to calculators. No, I'm joking. 12 times 6 is 72. So h to the 72nd power. There we go. Not too bad. Now I'd like you to try these 3 problems on your own, 1, 2, and 3. So pause the video, take a deep breath, relax. It's just math. We're going to go over it. If you get them wrong, correct them. It's okay. Low stress. Okay, I hope you paused the video and tried the problems. Here we go. This is in parentheses. It's actually doubly in parentheses. -4 has parentheses around it, so that's my base. And these brackets, these sort of rectangular brackets or square-looking brackets, those are another way of writing parentheses. Brackets are parentheses. But this parenthesis on the inside, the regular parenthesis, is saying that -4 is my base. So keep in the bracket, -4, and I'm going to add the exponents 2 plus 3. I'm going to follow that order of operations. And this 6 is still on the outside of the bracket. So you're going to see that I go back and forth a lot, double checking to make sure I didn't lose any parentheses, negative signs, exponents. That's what I do just to keep my head straight. So now I'm keeping the bracket and the parenthesis, -4, and I have 2 plus 3, 5, and on the outside I have the 6. So now I'm going to multiply my exponents. -4, and I'm going to multiply times 6. So I added first, and then I multiplied. And I get 5 times 6, -4, still in parentheses, because when parentheses are around a negative, that negative is glued to the number. So -4 to the 30th power. All right. Phew, that one down there looks a little bit easier, but it's got a trick. This is missing an exponent. So if I'm missing an exponent, I'll put my own exponent. I'm going to put a little 1 right there. So that is m to the 5th times m to the 1st, the whole thing to the 3rd power. So parentheses first. I'm going to add the exponents in the parentheses first. So I get m, and I'm going to add 5 plus 1. And then that is going to go to the 3rd power. So now I have m to the 6th, and then the whole thing to the 3rd power. So now m to the 6th is my base, and I'm going to multiply times 3 my exponent. So keep the base, and then 6 times 3 is 18. So I get m to the 18th power. Be careful. There's 2 sort of tricks here. One is that there should be an exponent. When you don't see an exponent, you put a 1. And the other is to do what's in the parentheses first. That rule never changes. So here down for this one, I also am missing my exponent. Negative 3 is this one with the parentheses is a lot like this one. So I'm going to follow this as a guide. Keeping my brackets and my negative 3 in parentheses, I'm going to add these exponents, 1 plus 6. And if you open a bracket, you have to close a bracket, and that's going to be squared. So now, still have these brackets, still have the negative 3 in parentheses. 1 plus 6, 7. Close the bracket, it's squared. Keep my base, negative 3. Now I'm going to multiply my exponent, 7 times 2. Keep the base in parentheses because it's negative. Negative 3, 7 times 2, 14. Okay. I know it seemed like I went a little fast there, but it's all right. Check your work. Make sure you have all the notes. And I'll see you soon. Take care.